The scream shattered the calm of the evening. I was standing by the grill in my backyard. The smell of marinated chicken and cedar smoke swirling in the air. When I heard the shrill voice of Karen, our HOA president, cutting through the twilight. She wasn't yelling at me this time. She was on the street, barking into her phone like a drill sergeant. Her plump body planted squarely in front of my driveway. Her eyes blazing at the black SUV parked there. Her words carried in the still air. Yes. Officer. I need police here immediately. There's a suspicious intruder on my street. He's trespassing at a private residence. Dangerous looking. My chest clenched as I realized who she was talking about. That SUV belonged to my guest, Senator David Rourke, who had flown in that afternoon to discuss a veterans' housing bill I was helping draft. He was more than a politician. He was a decorated veteran, a friend of my late father, and a man who had fought for decades to secure rights for those who sacrificed for this country. And here was Karen, reducing him to a suspicious intruder because he wasn't on her precious HOA guest list. I hurried down the porch steps, but before I could even reach her, Karen planted herself in front of the senator as he stepped from the car. He was tall, calm, dressed in a crisp gray suit with the faintest American flag pin on his lapel, and the kind of presence that made silence follow him. But Karen didn't notice or refuse to. She jabbed her finger in his chest, bellowing, "You don't belong here. This is a protected neighborhood. I don't care who you think you are, you're not on my roster. Leave now before the police arrive." Senator Rourke didn't flinch. He glanced at me, raising a single brow, the corner of his mouth twitching like he'd seen this kind of arrogance 100 times before. I could feel the anger bubbling inside me. But he simply said, steady as stone, "Ma'am, I am a guest of the homeowner. You are mistaken." His voice was controlled, respectful, but there was steel beneath it. Karen scoffed so loudly the neighbors peeking from their windows could hear. "Mistaken? Hardly. I've been running this HOA for 15 years. I know every face, every license plate. We don't allow strangers to waltz in and put us at risk. You're trespassing. Period." That was when the patrol car pulled up, lights flashing, siren cutting the night. Neighbors came onto porches with phones ready, recording the drama. Karen puffed up like a queen awaiting her guards, waving her arms toward the senator as though presenting him for arrest. "That's him. Arrest him. He's trespassing and refuses to leave." The officer stepped out, hand hovering near his holster, eyes scanning the scene. Before he could speak, I rushed forward, my voice cutting sharp. "Officer, this man is my guest. This is my property. He has every right to be here." Karen rounded on me, furious. "Your property. Your property. Everything in this neighborhood falls under HOA jurisdiction. We have the right to approve or deny guests." And I did not approve him. Her voice cracked into hysteria, spittle on her lips. The officer hesitated, caught between the fury of an HOA president and the steady, dignified silence of the senator. Then came the twist. Senator Rourke reached calmly into his jacket pocket. Karen gasped, clutching her pearls like he was reaching for a weapon. But what he pulled out was a leather folder, embossed with the United States Senate seal. He opened it slowly, deliberately, and handed the officer his identification. The young officer's eyes widened as he read, then straightened to full attention, nearly stumbling over his own words. "Sir Senator Rourke, I didn't realize." Karen's mouth dropped open, her face draining of color, then flushing crimson. "Senator, not as is a trick, a fake. Nobody important would be at his house. He doesn't even follow HOA landscaping rules. Her words fell flat against the hush that spread. The officer turned to her, voice now edged with irritation. Ma'am, this man is a sitting senator of the United States. He has every right to be here as a guest. There is no trespassing. What you've done is file a false report. The crowd stirred, whispers breaking into laughter. Neighbors raised their phones higher, filming Karen's sputtering collapse. False report. Me? No. I was protecting the community. This whole neighborhood depends on me. Her eyes darted wildly, searching for someone to back her. But no one did. For the first time, the fear she wielded over them cracked. Senator Rourke closed his folder with a snap and said in a voice that carried to every porch, "No neighborhood depends on tyranny. Ma'am, communities thrive on trust, not harassment." Karen's jaw trembled. Her arrogance faltered. She looked like a child caught with her hand in the cookie jar, but still tried to fight. You think you can talk down to me? You think your title makes you untouchable? Well, I'll have you know, she stopped because the officer was already pulling out his notepad, informing her that filing false reports, harassing a homeowner's guest, and attempting to obstruct an elected official could all carry consequences. Her protest shriveled into nervous laughter, the sound brittle and hollow. That was only the beginning of her unraveling, though none of us knew just how far it would go. The senator didn't storm off or demand silence. He stayed. He walked with me into my home, sat at my table, and began our meeting as if the chaos outside hadn't happened. But before he left, he looked around at the neighbors gathered and promised, "I will not forget what happened here tonight." And I believed him. The neighborhood was still buzzing the next morning, word of the fiasco spreading faster than wildfire. Clips of Karen screaming at the senator had already found their way online. By breakfast, my niece sent me a link to a viral video titled, "HOA Karen Tries to Arrest AU's Senator." It had 500,000 views overnight. The comments section was merciless, filled with strangers laughing at her arrogance, dissecting every word she shouted. For years, Karen thrived on intimidation in the shadows of board meetings and fine notices. But now her behavior was lit up for the world to see. I walked outside to fetch the paper and nearly tripped over a pile of flyers thrown at my gate. They were printed screenshots of her rant, plastered with bold captions like "false reports," "false power." Neighbors who once cowered under her threats now looked me in the eye with nods of quiet solidarity. It felt like a shift in gravity, like the whole valley had woken from a long sleep. That evening, the senator called me personally. His voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. I spoke with the governor and our state attorney general. They are aware of the incident. HOA boards are meant to serve, not terrorize. This abuse of power will not be ignored. I was stunned. A single evening of Karen's arrogance had sparked conversations in the highest offices of the state. I thanked him, but he cut me off gently. "Don't thank me. Thank yourself for standing your ground. Too many people give in to bullies like her. You didn't." A week later, the HOA held an emergency meeting in the community center. I almost didn't go, but curiosity won. The room was packed, the air thick with murmurs. Karen sat at the front, arms crossed, jaw clenched, trying to look unshaken. But the red blotches on her cheeks betrayed her. When the floor opened for discussion, voices exploded. People stood up one after another, recounting years of fines, harassment, false threats, A retired teacher described how Karen once called code enforcement on her because of a single wind-blown leaf. A young couple admitted Karen tried to block their adoption paperwork by labeling their home unsuitable. Each story piled on like weights, her face sinking lower into her collar. Then came the twist I never expected. Halfway through the testimonies, the senator himself walked in. The room gasped, the weight of his presence settling like a stone in the center. He didn't give a speech or raise his voice. He simply told the truth. I came here as a guest. Instead of hospitality, I was met with hostility and deceit. This isn't about me. This is about every person here who has been silenced or shamed. This kind of abuse weaponizing authority, calling the police on innocent people tears communities apart. And I promise you, it will stop. The applause was thunderous, echoing off the walls. Karen tried to shout over it, waving her arms desperately. This is my HOA. I built this neighborhood. You all need me. But the crowd drowned her out. The board members, finally emboldened, held a vote of no confidence on the spot. By majority, she was removed as president. Her shriek of "You can't do this to me" rang hollow as the gavel fell. Her downfall only accelerated. Within weeks, she faced charges for filing a false police report, with the senator himself listed as the complainant. The story hit national news. Headlines read, HOA president calls cops on senator. Faces charges. Reporters swarmed the neighborhood. Karen couldn't step outside without cameras chasing her. She tried to hold her head high, but the weight of her own arrogance crushed her. Sponsors she boasted about turned away. The local businesses she bullied refused her service. And even her closest allies on the board resigned to save their names. I'll never forget the day I saw her finally pack up. A moving truck sat in her driveway. Her once proud garden wilted. Her self-installed HOA president parking only sign bent and rusted. She carried boxes, huffing and cursing, but no one offered to help. Neighbors who once trembled under her gaze now watched silently, arms folded, the power she once wielded gone like smoke. She glared at me across the street, eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and shame. But I didn't gloat. I just nodded once, then turned back into my house. Months later, the senator returned to our neighborhood not as a guest, but as a speaker at a community barbecue organized by the very people Karen used to silence. He stood on a small stage, kids running around, families laughing, and spoke about dignity, respect, and the importance of ordinary people standing up against abuse. His words carried weight, but they also carried warmth. Power doesn't belong to those who shout the loudest, he said. It belongs to those who build, who welcome, who protect each other. As the sun dipped low and laughter filled the air, I looked around at neighbors who finally smiled freely, who finally waved without fear of being fined. The neighborhood was alive in a way it hadn't been in years. Karen's absence wasn't a low sit, was liberation. And I thought back to that night. The flashing lights, the raised voices, the moment when truth cut through arrogance. All it took was one locked gate, one firm stand, and a senator who refused to be bullied. It taught me something simple but powerful. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it speaks softly, but when it does, the world listens. So now I ask you, was I right to let the confrontation play out? To let her expose herself in front of everyone? Or should I have tried to defuse it quietly? When faced with a bully who hides behind authority, do we owe them patience? Or do we owe ourselves the truth? What do you think?